Redditors who have been out of their home country, what's the weirdest thing you've seen? I got called a fucking asshole by a 5-year-old on a bike with training wheels in Belfast. Belfast is awesome. I was headed back to my friend's house when I got very slightly disoriented and stopped on a street corner and looked at the street signs around me. Some kid, maybe 10, stops and says, "What's the matter, America? Can't find your hamburger?" I just automatically replied, "I'm Canadian," and the little shit didn't lose a beat. He came back with, "You're really lost then, we don't even have a maple syrup shop." We both laughed like idiots. Late one night in Shinjuku, Tokyo, I witnessed a Japanese pimp screaming at a prostitute a solid 8 taller than him. He looked like the stereotypical pimp, from the fur coat and cane right down to the Cadillac. It blew my fucking mind. I was walking down a street in Thailand and a hooker on the other side of the street yelled, "Won't somebody come fuck me in the ass?" In Europe when we were on vacation as a kid, probate, I had to take a piss at one point and all they had was that big trough urinal where everyone stands next to each other. So I go and I'm pissing and this kid next to me has a mangled dick. I'm thinking, wow, that's crazy, I wonder what happened to his dick. Probably got messed up climbing over those walls between yards that have glass on top of them you guys have everywhere. Sad his dick got mangled like that. Wow. And for years and years I would occasionally think about that kid with the mangled dick, and then finally when I was older I realized his dick was just not circumcised, and all this time I was, you know, metaphorically pouring out a 40 for this kid's dick on occasion. So wait a minute, you thought his dick was mangled because your dick was mutilated for you when you were a baby? LMFAO. A woman dressed in a burqa, covered head to toe with only her eyes barely visible, and carrying a large Victoria's Secret bag. Halal in the streets, haram in the sheets. Went to Japan in 2016 and never saw a public trash bin. More surprising was that there was no trash on the ground either. It was like citizens were expected to take their trash home. Cleanest country I've ever seen. Part of the culture is not eating on the go. You never see anyone walking while eating, or sipping a Starbucks on the way to work like you do in the US. If you get food at a street vendor you are supposed to eat it there and hand the trash back to the vendor when you are done. Or if you grab something from a vending machine, they often have a trash receptacle right next to it. I agree though. When I visited, it blew my mind that, despite it being hard to find a place to throw away trash, the streets were super clean. A blackout drunk dude in a train in Japan with his wallet full of cash and phones on the floor. When the train was getting full of working dudes and students they just asked him to sit up straight. He didn't lose his stuff and didn't really cause trouble. This was a Thursday morning. The drinking culture is very surprising and out in the open in Tokyo. I live in a decently sized city myself, Toronto, but typically you don't see much public drunkenness on the streets, especially on weeknights, and if you do, it's either people in their 20s going to a bar club. When I visited Tokyo and went out for a walk my first night there, it was just groups and groups of 4 or 5 middle-aged men, and some women, in full-on business suit and tie-attire drunkenly walking stumbling on the sidewalk on a random Wednesday night on the way to, or out of bars. Note, although starting to become less popular, the after-work drinking party is a common thing in Japan, which is why you can see swathes of red-faced drunk guys juxtaposed in very somber charcoal suits leaning against each other trying to make it to the subway or a cab. When I went there on vacation, at night I saw what I thought were homeless people in a park. Somebody explained to me that it isn't uncommon for people to not make it home and just pass out somewhere on a bench or whatever. And when that happens they buy a change of clothes in the morning and just go back to work again. After that I started noticing at the convenience stores they had a whole section of white dress shirts, slacks, ties, pantyhose, etc. that was for people who passed out drunk before they made it home. And around about 10 PM the subway is completely packed with drunk business guys, and I mean drunk. Not obnoxious or rowdy, but like exactly the right amount of rowdy. Beer in bags with straws. Editing to say that it was Mexico. A man and woman in their underwear holding up a sign in New York. Welcome to Times Square. I lived in Barcelona for 4 years, and their Christmas traditions are weird. Firstly, there's the Kagana. The Kagana is a little dude that you place in your nativity scene, who is standing with his pants around his ankles, mid-shit. Literally, his name comes from the verb cagar, meaning to shit. This pops up a lot in Catalonia. The best part is that you can get non-traditional caganas too, so it's not at all uncommon to see pop culture figures like politicians, or well, basically anyone you can think of, just taking a dump behind the manger where Baby Jesus is doing his thing. Then there's the Cargatillo, which is a happy, smiling Christmas log that children hit with a stick until it shits candy. All while singing a song about how much they're going to beat the shit out of this log until it gives them what they want. Cargatillo. Cargatero. Aval enzymato. Sino cagsby. Et diuncopter basto. Cargatillo. Shit, log. Shit turon. Hazelnuts and marto. If you don't shit well, I'll hit you with a stick. Shit, log. There's a lot of poop in a Barcelona Christmas. Chinese toddlers wearing pants with no butt. The world is their potty. The best is when they hang them out the window of the car bus and let them spray whomever is walking by on the sidewalk. Walking down a street in Mannheim, Germany, and had an older man pull up near me on a bicycle. He rang his bell twice and very directly looked at me and just said, "Hush." He then rode off casually ahead of me. For reference, I'm a 6 feet 6 inches guy, 198 centimeters, and a man in his 50s 60s just called me pretty in German. I mean, I am pretty, but no one says it. I was in Amsterdam for the 2016 US election. People were staying up late to watch the election results come in. After the bar closed, I wandered back to my hotel room and came across Dutch, libertarian Trump supporters. Some other people overheard us chatting and they got into a very civil, but heated, debate about US politics on a bridge over a canal. I felt I was pretty informed as an American, but these Dutch dudes were next level. It was weird to see people so invested in the details of our issues. They even debated the Constitution. As a Dutch guy, I think it's because American politics etc. are heavily covered in our media. I remember that the 2016 elections were a big deal here. Maybe because we Dutchies feel connected to the US somehow. I'm not really educated on the subject, but it's a gut feeling. Tanks casually rolling down the street and guys with machine guns patrolling in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. They tell you to not leave the town because Guerrero has a lot of cartel activity. The first thing I noticed about Iceland when I left the Keflavik airport was the near absolute lack of trees. The whole island has almost no trees. I'm from Appalachia, so that was really odd for me. When I first stepped off of a plane in Iceland, a single word went through my head: barren. But not like a bad kind. It's just a brutal kind of beauty. Also, it just straight up smelled different. Went to Peru with several people from a Chinese community in New York. I'm white. We were going to do some charity work for a local orphanage in a very rural area, like pour water into your toilet bowl so it can flush rural. Our local chaperone legit told the Asians in the group, if you get cornered in a dark alley at any point, even if you do have a weapon, your best chance is to do the Bruce Lee crane pose while yelling hi because the people around here will only know Asians as the guys in the kung fu movies that beat up everybody. You do that, they'll think they accidentally cornered a kung fu master. You're laughing now, but if it ever happens you'll thank me. He later told me he learned that from another group that had a similar experience where it worked. Edit, also went to Machu Picchu while we were down there, and it cost money to use the toilets.
Definitely elevating for the 966. The ill suicidal libel to take titles and make vital signs, but not like no cancer. Answer, there's no chance to advance to ya. Kuya got blazed through ya. The great super science, applying pressure, I desecrate with double O's and bubble folds while I cut you, bro. I juggle flows that goes ballistic, reminiscent of exquisite cannibalistics and a sadistic doctor. My sick shit, nausea, improper, got